Hi, I'm Fred Collier, Director of the Cleveland City Planning Commission, and I'm here today in Market Square. And as we come out the pandemic, we've learned a lot of lessons. A lot of our habits have changed as to how we live and also how we get around. And today, we want to talk to you about shared mobility. And joining me today is Callie Mersman, the city's bicycle and pedestrian coordinator. And we're going to talk to you about the shared mobility program, how it's progressed, and how it's going to ramp back up after COVID-19. So Callie, how are you?
Doing well, how are you?
Good to see you. So behind us, we have a number of the devices that are active in the city of Cleveland now. Talk to me a little bit about the scooter program overall and what you have witnessed happen over the last year and a half.
So we have 3 companies currently operating in the city of Cleveland. As you can see here, there's Bird, Lime, and Spin. These devices are what we call dockless. That means that you can find them in different places around the city, activate them using an app on your phone, and then ride to your destination.
Okay.
We'll go over some safety tips and good parking practices a little bit later. But basically, you can download the app for any of these companies. There's a QR code on them that you scan, and then you can ride to where you're going.
Now, I know these have been pretty popular when we first rolled these out. During COVID-19, what has been the sort of activity level with respect to scooters and shared mobility devices? Have you seen it go up, down? Has it been steady?
So as we've all experienced, the ability to get outside and enjoy some socializing and fresh air has been really important over the last year. We saw scooter activity maintain over the course of the last year. During pandemic, a lot of people using that as an option to safely get out and see the city in a way that maybe they hadn't thought of before that. We started this program in August of 2019, and since that time, we've had over 525,000 rides in the city. During COVID, we saw an average of longer rides, so people were maybe using them a little bit more for transportation if they didn't feel safe in a shared transportation setting, and also taking them to enjoy parks and trails and other outdoor recreational opportunities.
Now, I know there's been a lot of investment in infrastructure, particularly trails. And I know that from a planning perspective, we try to connect our trails to our main streets. And there's a lot of infrastructure improvements that are needed to accommodate this, since we believe that it's here to stay. So talk to me a little bit about the process that the companies have to go through and the permitting process to actually do business in the city of Cleveland.
Yeah, the City of Cleveland has an annual shared mobility permit. Companies apply to us and tell us how they're going to operate their devices, how they're going to educate users, and we issue them permits to have scooters out like this. As we've discussed over the last year and a half, we have had Bird, Lime, and Spin. We're kicking off another round of annual permits this month in June, and we'll be welcoming an additional company, Link, to Cleveland, that will also be offering stand-up e-scooters. We also expect to see some e-bikes coming out in Cleveland this summer, and so that's something to stay tuned for, and maybe we'll come back and talk to you more about those when those are going live.
That's great. So the diversity of devices is really changing and evolving, right? And that increases mode choice for people. So people can not just ride a scooter, but they can ride an electronic bicycle. Talk to me a little bit about electronic bicycles. How do they work?
So the e-bikes that we'll be seeing in Cleveland, when you start pedaling, they have a motor that kicks in to help you out. So maybe if you're a rider that has been on the new part of the towpath trail through Tremont, there are some hills in that part.
Yeah, that's right.
And you know, you're going in and out of the valley. That motor just gives you a little bit of extra oomph for your muscles. It's also helpful crossing the bridges, and really anytime that you don't feel like totally powering yourself with your own muscles.
Okay, wow, that's amazing. I know I struggle a bit when I hit some of those hills when I ride from time to time. Now, one thing that's really important that I think we've been successful at in the city of Cleveland is really making sure that things are safe. I know with the administration, safety is paramount, and I know that we did a lot of due diligence with making sure that companies understood the importance of safety. Now, when we think about safety, when we talk about safety for the actual riders, what do riders need to remember with respect to staying safe, not just for themselves, but also protecting the general public?
Yeah, so we have a couple of key tips to keep in mind. If it's your first ride on a scooter, we really recommend that you find a quiet, smooth street or maybe an empty parking lot to just test out and get familiar. There's a throttle and a brake on each of the scooters. When you first step on and kick off, you want to be certain not to hit the throttle all the way down. So just sort of get yourself going, experiment with how the device feels before you're out in the road with traffic. When you're riding, you should be in the road following all traffic rules. These devices are not for sidewalk riding. Sidewalks are for people who are walking.
Sure.
So we want to make sure that when you're on the road, you're visible and predictable. That means using bike lanes where possible. Where not, feel free to take the lane. You want to be at least 3 feet from the curb so you have some room to maneuver around potholes or maybe if there's some broken glass or debris in the road. And finally, just like never assume that a driver can see you. Stop at red lights, stop at stop signs, and operate as you would in a car following all of those traffic rules.
Awesome. Now, there's obviously the flip side to that. People who are in cars have to respect cyclists and scooters, right? So what would you say to folks like myself who drive frequently, and what should we look out for in order to make sure that pedestrians, mobility device users, and others are safe on our streets?
Yeah, so the first thing I would say is really slow down and expect to see people on scooters and bikes in the road with you.
Important.
Especially in an area like this where there's a lot of different types of activity. Scooters and bikes are, like we just talked about, should be riding in the road. They are legally allowed to take the entire lane if they need to. So if you're coming up on someone on a scooter, you're probably going faster than they are in your car.
Right.
But slow down and wait until you can safely pass to go around them. If there's another lane, you should change lanes completely to pass. But regardless, always be sure you leave 3 feet between the side of your car and that scooter or bike rider to make sure that there's plenty of space for that to happen. Another key thing is just try not to drive distracted. No texting when you're driving, no fiddling with the radio or things like that. It's really important to always be aware of the other road users around you.
So given the amount of devices that are on the road and mobility options, situational awareness is going to be key for all of you out there. So this has been great. And I think one of the things that I think we all have to remember as we get out this summer, as we come out of COVID-19, is that our environment is changing. And we have to consider other users of the road. And we look forward to having a robust program. And thank you, Callie, for everything that you've done for the city of Cleveland to establish Cleveland as a friendly city for bikes, pedestrians, in all modes. Thank you.